Hello and welcome back to the Alnwick Castle Podcast. I'm Deborah Baycroft.
And I'm Daniel Watkins.
And on today's episode, we are going to try and take you through a timeline of the entire history of Alnwick Castle, taking in all the key dates, events and people from the past 1,000 years.
We won't be including absolutely everything, but this will give you a brief rundown of what was happening here at Alnwick Castle from the 11th through to the 21st century. If you'd like to know more about anything we mention in this timeline, please let us know because it could be a future episode.
But for now, please enjoy this Alnwick Castle timeline.
(1067). The Percy family, led by William de Percy, moved to England from Normandy. According to a 15th century document called the Little Pedigree Roll, William was so beloved by William the Conqueror that he is granted the greatest part of the province of Yorkshire. It's possible that de Percy, or one of his family, was at the Battle of Hastings the previous year, but this is the first evidence of the family coming to England to stay.
1093. Malcolm III, King of Scotland, invades England and is killed just north of Alnwick Castle. There are various stories about what exactly happened, but our favourite involves the steward of the castle riding out to meet with the king, displaying the keys to the castle on the end of his spear. When Malcolm got a little too close in an attempt to take the keys, he was fatally struck with the spear. It probably didn't happen quite like this, but nearly 700 years later, Malcolm's cross is built on the spot where he is supposed to have died.
1138. Richard, Prior of Hexham, writes a chronicle that contains the earliest known description of Alnwick Castle. The prior describes a munitissimum castellum, a heavily fortified castle, at Alnwick. This suggests that a strongly defended fortress, made from stone, must have been complete or nearly complete by this year. Some parts of Alnwick Castle today probably date from around this time.
1174. Another Scottish king, William the Lion, is captured near Alnwick Castle. Like Malcolm III, he had led a force of soldiers into England, and also like Malcolm, there are different stories about how he ended up a prisoner of the English. Our favourite version of this story starts with William and a group of his knights camping near the castle, awaiting the return of the rest of his army, who were raiding nearby villages. An English force arrives from Newcastle, taking the king by surprise. He was just about to eat and didn't even have his helmet with him. When he realises the approaching army is English and not his own returning Scots, he shouts, "Now let it be seen who is a good knight," and charges into battle. His horse is killed and William is trapped underneath it, forcing him to surrender.
1215. King John agrees to the terms of the Magna Carta, an attempt to make peace between the king and a group of rebellious land-owning barons. One of these barons is Eustace de Vesci, the Lord of Alnwick, who had been deeply involved in the military operations that led to the making of Magna Carta. Richard de Percy, another baron and ancestor of the family that would take over Alnwick Castle, is present at Runnymede, near Windsor, when Magna Carta is agreed.
1297. The last de Vesci Lord of Alnwick, William, dies without legitimate heirs. The barony of Alnwick, including the castle, is given in trust to Anthony Beck, an important statesman and Bishop of Durham. Without a lawful heir to the de Vesci family, Beck has full and legal possession of Alnwick.
1309. Beck sells the barony to Henry de Percy, who becomes the first Percy Lord of Alnwick. It's difficult to know exactly how much Henry paid for the castle, though there are surviving documents that suggest he took a loan from an Italian banking family. The sale itself is not recorded with a fee, but the deed of sale still survives in Alnwick Castle's archives today.
1346. The second Lord Percy of Alnwick, another Henry, helps to lead an English army against Scotland at the Battle of Neville's Cross. Scottish King David II is captured as a result of this battle.
1364. Harry Hotspur Percy is born. Probably. Probably because, while it seems likely to be true, there are sources that suggest he is born 2 years later, in 1366. Harry grows up to be one of medieval England's most celebrated knights, gains his nickname Hotspur from the Scots, is written about by Shakespeare after his death, and remains one of the most famous former residents of Alnwick Castle to this day.
1377. In the same year that Hotspur is knighted, his father, another Henry, is elevated to the title of Earl of Northumberland, making the Percys one of the most important and influential families in the north, if not all of England.
1403. Hotspur rebels against King Henry IV, culminating in the Battle of Shrewsbury, where he's killed. Along with his father and uncle, Hotspur had helped Henry to overthrow the previous king, Richard II, and take the throne. But disagreements over rebels in Wales, payments for soldiers, and ransoms for Scottish prisoners lead to Hotspur clashing with the king. He gathers an army and faces the king's forces on the battlefield, only to be defeated. After his death, Henry IV has Hotspur's head displayed on the walls of York, and his body quartered and displayed in 4 English cities to show the consequences of rebellion.
1455. Hotspur's son, the second Earl of Northumberland, is killed fighting for King Henry VI and the House of Lancaster in the First Battle of St Albans. This marks the beginning of the Wars of the Roses. Within 10 years, 4 of the Earl's sons are killed trying to avenge him.
1461. Alnwick Castle comes under royal control as a result of the Wars of the Roses. First used as a base for fleeing members of the Lancastrian side, including Queen Margaret of Anjou, it soon submits peacefully to the opposing side, the Yorkists led by the Earl of Warwick. At the beginning of 1462, the Lancastrians take it back, but by that summer, it's once again in Yorkist ownership. Queen Margaret besieges it that summer, and the castle is quickly given up to her. After another siege, this time by Warwick, Alnwick surrenders again to the Yorkists in January 1463. This lasts until May, when the Lancastrians are let into the castle to take it over again. Finally, under threat of cannon fire in 1464, it gives up to the Earl of Warwick for the last time.
1475. Henry Percy, the 4th Earl of Northumberland, completes the Barbican entrance of Alnwick Castle, a few years after ownership was returned to his family by King Edward IV. The badge of the 4th Earl, carved in stone, can still be seen on the front of the Barbican, which was equipped with all the defensive features needed to make sure no attempt to assault the castle would be successful.
1512. The Northumberland Household Book is compiled on the orders of the 5th Earl. It describes the domestic arrangements for 2 of the Earl's favourite northern residences, listing the staff, the daily routine, and the cost of food and drink provision for the 166 members of the household, plus 57 strangers or guests every day. The 1512 book is especially significant because it has survived to the present day.
1536. Thomas and Ingram Percy, brothers of the 6th Earl, became leading figures in the Pilgrimage of Grace, a Catholic rebellion against Henry VIII. Ingram summons the gentlemen of Northumberland to Alnwick Castle in an attempt to recruit them to the rebels' cause. The Pilgrimage of Grace ultimately fails. Thomas Percy is hanged, drawn and quartered, while Ingram is imprisoned in the Tower of London.
1567. George Clarkson writes a report for the 7th Earl of Northumberland, known today as Clarkson's Survey, which describes the details of every part of Alnwick Castle at this period in history. Introducing the castle as large, beautiful and portly, Clarkson's survey records the size, function and condition of every castle tower, as well as all of the domestic buildings surviving at that time.
1577. In the last known Scottish raid on Alnwick Castle, a small group of attackers managed to find a way into the castle's baileys. Then they emptied the dungeon and other cellar of their prisoners before escaping.
1605. Thomas Percy, the constable of Alnwick Castle and cousin of the 9th Earl of Northumberland, is implicated in the Gunpowder plot when Guy Fawkes is discovered under the Houses of Parliament. Thomas is shot and killed trying to escape, and his cousin the Earl is put on trial, eventually being sentenced to imprisonment in the Tower of London. The day before Fawkes' discovery, Thomas and the Earl had dined together at Syon House, a property brought into Percy family ownership in the 9th Earl's time.
1650. Following the Battle of Dunbar, English soldiers under the command of Oliver Cromwell marched thousands of Scottish prisoners south towards Durham. On the way, they stay overnight in the grounds of Alnwick Castle, betwixt the middle and upper gate, according to Robert Watson, the castle's administrator at the time.
1670. Jocelyn Percy, the 11th Earl of Northumberland, dies in Italy. Jocelyn rarely, if ever, visited Alnwick Castle, which has by this time become unsuitable as a noble residence. His only surviving child is his 3-year-old daughter Elizabeth, who cannot inherit the castle without a husband willing to take the name Percy and the Northumberland titles on her behalf. After the deaths of her first two husbands, Elizabeth marries the 6th Duke of Somerset, and they reside in the south of England. Alnwick Castle becomes virtually uninhabited and begins to fall into disrepair.
(1750). Another Percy family heiress, also called Elizabeth, and her husband Hugh travel to Northumberland. They enter Newcastle on the 25th of August. When they reach Felton, they are met by a large group of local gentlemen and some of the most important residents of Alnwick, who accompany them to Alnwick Castle. Hugh announces the couple's project to fully restore the castle, allowing he and his wife the ability to use it as their most northern home.
1766. The restoration of the rooms and buildings at Alnwick Castle are well underway, as Hugh and Elizabeth are elevated to the title of Duke and Duchess of Northumberland by King George III.
1770. Landscape architect Lancelot Capability Brown visits Alnwick Castle, together with his wife and Lady Lorraine of Kirkall, as guests of the Duke and Duchess. He has already been working on a plan to redesign parkland around the castle, and is known to the Duke through his work at Sion during the previous decade.
1798. The Percy Tenantry Volunteers are formed by the 2nd Duke of Northumberland. Continuing in various forms for the next 2 decades, the PTV are local men, almost all tenants of the Duke, trained and equipped to defend the northeast against potential invasion from French Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte.
1854. On the 25th of November, Eleanor, wife of the 4th Duke of Northumberland, lays the foundation stone of the new Prudhoe Tower at Alnwick Castle. This tower is a major part of restoration works planned by the 4th Duke, expanding the castle and creating new staterooms inspired by the Italian Renaissance. He will purchase a collection of Italian old master paintings to hang in new rooms. The laying of the stone marks the official start of the project. The Prudhoe Tower's first floor will house a new library. Work on the castle's exteriors is carried out under the direction of architect Anthony Selvin. The interior decoration is in the care of Luigi Canina, an architect, archaeologist and director of Rome's Capitoline Museum.
1856. While work continues on the restoration, Luigi Canina dies. His assistant, Giovanni Monteroli, takes over. Monteroli oversees much of the rest of the project, which continues into the middle of the following decade.
1859. Newcastle kitchens, designed by Salvin and showcasing the latest hydraulic and steam technology, are given a grand opening for the 5th anniversary of the restoration works. A dinner is held for 600 workmen at the castle, and the dinner includes a huge baron of beef, perfectly cooked for 8 hours on the kitchen's new roasting range.
1874. Northumberland House, the central London home of the Percy family for over 2 centuries, is demolished as part of modernisation works taking place across this part of the city. Many items from its collections are moved to Alnwick Castle, including chandeliers and suites of furniture.
1889. The 6th Duke installs a water turbine on the River Aln, creating enough hydroelectricity to power 100 electric lamps at the castle.
1914. The First World War begins, and land on Capability Brown's pastures north of Alnwick Castle are given over to the military. Beginning as a training facility, as the war continues, the Alnwick camp becomes a convalescent hospital for wounded soldiers. Over the course of the First World War, over 100 members of castle staff, as well as members of the Percy family, enlist for military service.
1940. The first evacuees from Newcastle Church High School move into Alnwick Castle at the suggestion of Helen, mother of the 9th Duke of Northumberland. Remaining at the castle for the next 4 years, the evacuees study and live in the castle, making use of old servants' quarters as well as the grounds and towers. In May of this year, the 9th Duke was killed by German machine gun fire during the Allied forces' retreat to Dunkirk.
1977. The Northumberland Teacher Training College, which took over the spaces used by Newcastle Church High School in 1945, closes. Soon, St. Cloud State University from Minnesota in the United States of America move into the same areas of Alnwick Castle, bringing several cohorts of students each year. The university still has a campus at the castle today, and many former students continue to make return visits.
1995. The present Duke and Duchess of Northumberland inherit and move into Alnwick Castle with their 4 children. Over the following years, they undertake long-term projects to restore the staterooms as well as the castle's walls and towers. The Duchess begins to develop an idea to create a new garden. The Alnwick Garden begins to take shape as the 20th century ends and continues to develop through the 21st century.
2000. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone filmed several scenes at Alnwick Castle. Its cast and crew returned the following year to film parts of the sequel, and the first film is released in cinemas, showcasing Alnwick Castle and many other iconic British locations to millions of people across the world. Of course, the history of Alnwick Castle did not stop in 2000. Things continue to change and develop, ensuring that the castle's story will continue well into the future.
Several of the subjects we mentioned in the timeline have been featured in their own episode of the podcast. If you'd like to know more about the castle's links to the Wars of the Roses, try episode 54. For more on Thomas Percy and the Gunpowder plot, listen back to episode 21.
If you'd like to hear more about the Dunbar Prisoners, look for episode 51, or if you want more information about the first Duke and Duchess of Northumberland, head all the way back to episode 5.
For the Percy Tenantry Volunteers, episodes 9 and 57 both cover different aspects of this subject. And finally, to hear more about St Cloud State University and their links to Alnwick Castle, please listen to episode 38.
This is the last episode of the Alnwick Castle podcast for 2024. We'll be taking a short break after this, but we'll be back in early 2025, and we hope you'll join us again then.
Until then, I've been Deborah.
And I've been Daniel.
Thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.
Bye.